Hi, everybody. Welcome to This Week in the ACCC. I'm Robert Williamson. Got a very busy show this week. We're going to be talking about basketball, baseball, softball, got the national polls, got the division standings, and more. It's right here on This Week in the ACCC, and since it is so busy, let's get right into the show. Terran Hayes, a Huntsville, Alabama native, has been named the ACCC Player of the Week. In men's basketball, he led Enterprise State Community College to a couple of wins, put 19 on the board against Faulkner State and then 17 against LBW. Congratulations to Hayes. While we're talking about men's basketball, let's highlight some of the key games played during the course of the week. What about the topsy-turvy battle in the top of the North Division? You had Marion Military Institute losing to Shelton State, then lost a game to Snead State. Meanwhile, Shelton State beats Snead State. So you got everybody beating up on themselves with the exception of Lawson State. Lawson State a surprise in the North Division, and they continue to play extremely well. It was MMI losing to Snead State by a point, 56-55. It was Lawson State beating Shelton State 81-76, and then Lawson State in a non-division game taking on Alabama Southern. And let's talk about that for a moment. We've already speculated that the North Division of the ACCC may be the stronger division in men's basketball. Should we put a question mark by that? Lawson State atop the division. They play the South Division leader Alabama Southern. Alabama Southern wins it by a final of 102-96. So maybe the South isn't so weak after all. Only time will tell as we get into the state tournament a little bit later on. Well, we've been talking about the division standings. Let's go ahead and take a peek at those standings. First of all, in the North, you see that Lawson State is atop those standings. Despite an overall record below the 500 mark, they are playing very well in the division and thus are atop the standings. Not far behind, though, is a group of teams: MMI, Shelton State, Wallace State, Hansville. Meanwhile, in the North, make that in the South, well, things are a little bit different from the standpoint of one team dominating. Alabama Southern with a brand new head coach who said his not only primary goal, his exclusive goal was to win the ACCC, starting to turn heads and make some people believers as they are atop the standings and are building a little bit of a padding between they and Bishop State. National polls. Well, there used to be a couple of teams in the ACCC in the men's NJCAA top 25. That's no longer the case. Now you've got just one, and that is MMI. MMI is the number 23 ranked team in the nation. Now, to make that 24, they are ranked. And of course, South Plains, the number one team. There's three Texas teams in the top five. Big question mark for me, though, was Hutchinson was the number two team. They lose. San Jac was 4 and leapfrogs Georgia Highlands to the number 2 spot, and Georgia Highlands, still unbeaten, stays at 3. What's up with that? Well, I guess we'll find out who is actually 1, 2, and 3 a little bit later on in the season. Well, why don't we take a look at ladies basketball and start with the player of the week, Gadsden State's Raven Cooley. The freshman guard hit 16 points, 3 rebounds, couple assists, and better than 2 steals in 3 games for the Cards. Shot 33% from behind the arc, 73% from the stripe, and as a result, Raven Cooley has been named the Ladies Basketball Player of the Week. While we're talking about ladies basketball, some of the key matchups over the course of the last few days. Chat Valley, the number 1 team in the South Division with a pair of wins, one out of division play over Albany Technical School, and then one in division play over LPW by a final of 65-51. In the North, Shelton State keeps rolling, 96-64. They were victorious over Snead State, still an unblemished mark in division play. And as a result of back on a winning track after a couple of holiday losses to ranked teams, they are again climbing in the NJCAA polls. Let's get to that in a moment. First, let's take a look at the divisions. First of all, the North Division in the ACCC, where Shelton State is unbeaten, but not far behind, is Wallace State Hansville. In the South Division, you've got Chat Valley as the number 1 team. They are unbeaten in conference play and in division play, but again, not far behind. It's the ladies from over at Alabama Southern trying to push Chat Valley out of the top spot. Speaking of top spots, let's take a look at the latest NJCAA basketball polls, where the number one team in the country, it remains Odessa. And if you go down a little bit to just below the end of the top 10, you'll find in that number 9 spot Shelton State. Shelton State, the only team currently in the ACCC that is in the top 25 basketball polls on the ladies' side. Well, we've talked basketball. We're at that point in the season where we've got some softball, got some baseball to chat about as well. Let's do that right after the break. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in the ACCC. We've talked basketball. Now time to talk softball and baseball. Yes, the season has begun for both. In softball, Wallace State, Hansville, and Snead State traveled to Galveston, Texas to participate in a tournament there. 5 games for both teams. Wallace Hansville, the champion last year in the ACCC, comes away with a 2-3 mark in those 5 games, while Snead State goes 1-4. One interesting note, Marion Military Institute, they have now, in the span of about 48 hours, won more games than they won in all of last season. MMI 3-1 after 4 games into the softball season. Last year, you might recall, they finished 2-34 overall and did not win a conference game, so things certainly looking better for MMI. Baseball. Well, you've got Chat Valley, ranked number 6 in the nation coming into the season in the preseason NJCAA baseball polls, lost in their opening game against East Georgia, but then got revenge and took the next 2. Lost 5-1, then won 12-2 and 6-4 to take the weekend series 2 out of 3. And they are the number 6 ranked team in the nation. While we're talking about ranked teams in the country in the baseball polls, got to mention Shelton State. They are currently at 18. But of course, those are the preseason polls. What really counts is how you fare at the end of the year. When we come back, let's talk about what lies ahead. Got the game of the week coming up. We've got some baseball and softball on the horizon as well. All a part of the ACCC Sports Network. Let's do that after the break. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in the ACCC. In our final segment, got to let you know where we are. Coming up on Saturday, as a matter of fact, you may be watching this during Saturday's coverage. Lawson State taking on Faulkner State. It's within the ACCC, but the game of the week is out of division play. A team out of the North, Lawson State, faring very well in the North, against a Faulkner State squad that is struggling a little bit this year, but would like to fine-tune things against Lawson State before getting back into South Division play. The ladies play at 2, the men at 4 o'clock. We'll have the coverage for you here on the ACCC Sports Network. What about softball and baseball? Yes, indeed, we will have Game of the Week coverage for you. It will start immediately after the wrap-up of the state tournament at Lawson State in Birmingham, and that happens about the midway mark of March. So right about the 13th through the 18th of March, we will begin our coverage of baseball and softball's ACCC Game of the Week. Before we go, got to remind you, all the social media stuff. We want you to follow us on Twitter and befriend us on Facebook. We'll keep you updated on everything we're doing. Scores are posted immediately there as well. A lot more information too. Plus, we get to interact with you. You know how the social media thing works. So indeed, Twitter, Facebook, all the other stuff that you'll find shortcuts to on our website, or you can simply go to that social media outlet and poke us in the search engine and follow us. We'll appreciate it very much. Thanks so much for watching This Week in the ACCC. James Crenshaw has been your producer. I'm Robert Williamson. We will see you next time right here.